chance to finish going through them. So if I mess up, I mess up. Oh well. But the thing about it is, we've been working on putting out the Thrivalist course, which you guys are aware of, right? We spent over 3,000 hours putting it together last time, and I'm probably going to spend about 1,000+ hours putting it together again this time. The difference is, back in 2016, we started back in 2011, I think, with this course, but 2016, I didn't know what I know now. Every single year, I put in thousands and thousands of hours into preparedness. And when I do that, I learn a ton. And I feel like a Boy Scout. I feel like the interesting thing about it, I remember a teacher saying something to me very, very fascinating. He said, learning is kind of like, getting a stool and putting stand on the stool. Most of it falls off, right? But if you keep putting it on, eventually it sticks. And then everything you learn just keeps growing from there. But what he didn't tell me is that the more you learn and it starts going past the stool, the dumber you feel, okay? And I feel like I have so many questions I don't know answers to. And at the same time, I have to convince myself I'm a lot smarter than I was 13 years ago, or 20, 30 years ago. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but that's how I feel. And so every single day, this is like Boy Scouts for me. And it's amazing. I get to learn amazing things from amazing people. And so I'm always listening to you guys, listening to others, and just going, I didn't get that. I didn't know that. That's amazing. And it's just awesome. So I get to start this course over again. In a year or 2 years from now, I might have to refilm it because I'll learn more. But right now, the stuff that's going to be put inside this course is the best in the industry, period. Okay? You have the coaches that you come in here and speak with are the best in the industry, period. You guys don't know that. I mean, you walk in, these gals can get paid a lot more than I can pay them right now. Okay, we're talking about nurses, we're talking about professionals, we're talking about people who can get paid a lot more than I can pay them. The reason they're here is because they believe in the mission as much as I do. They want to help this year 10,000 families not get started in preparedness, but finish preparedness. So you guys know we're doing this whole $997 course that I'm filming right now that we already started putting on the internet. And if anybody finishes that course within 90 days, which you could totally do, that's why it's built. If you finish that course, the beautiful thing is you get your money right back. We send you a $1,000 package in the mail. And so it's just really easy to reward people, and that makes it measurable because then we know we can help 10,000 families. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's what we're working on right now. So with that in mind, this is going to be 4 classes I'm going to film today. They're the introductory classes. I'm going to be filming more in the next couple upcoming weeks until we get through the whole course. It's going to be a lot of filming, a lot of talking. By the end, I won't be able to talk. My wife is going to say, thank you so much. And so anyways, today we're going to do 4. So what will happen is I'll be talking to people online, okay, and here as if you guys just signed up for the course. And then when we're done with the first video, we'll go to the second, third, and fourth until we're done. Okay, does that sound fair? Okay, so this is how we're going to start it out. I'm going to have, Sarah, are you still here? Would you mind introducing me? And I'm going to come in, and would you guys just give me a little hand? Like, get excited. Just go, yeah, awesome. If you need to, you can jump around and turn around and break dance and, do this thing, right? Whatever you do, I don't know. But we'll figure it out. And I better turn this off because I keep forgetting. My wife sometimes calls me in the middle of me teaching, and or my kids or something, right? And so that makes it a lot easier. All right, so let's go ahead and start. I'm going to give this to Sarah, and you are on it.
Just
introduce me and the 7 steps course, the Thrivalist course, and help bring me out.
Hello, welcome. So glad you all are here tonight.
Microphone.
Oh, hello, welcome. So glad you're all here tonight. Thank you for coming, and thanks for those who are on Zoom and other live stream. We're excited. Marcelo is here tonight to share about the Thrivalist preparedness course that we have, and so many great things. So put your hands together and welcome Marcelo Sergopoulos.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so first of all, I want to congratulate all of you here. I mean, this is awesome. You guys, all of you online watching videos, all of you here for showing up. You know how many people purchase a course and don't even show up to the first day? How many people purchase a course, don't even press play on the first day? They have the best intentions, but they do Nothing at all. And you guys are here. You guys are part of, and I put it up here on the screen for you. You guys are part of the 1%. And what's interesting is 1 is 1 out of 100, right? 1% is 1 out of 100, but that's not actually true. You guys are part of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, because literally about 1 out of 10,000 people in our nation, which, by the way, I work with Brazil and Greece and all these different countries, and they don't have preparedness. I mean, you talk to the people in the Netherlands, right? And they don't really understand preparedness. But in this country where we do have maybe sometimes bigger houses, the ability to store things up, more of a awareness of preparedness, 1 out of maybe 10,000 people even go down the journey to get prepared and get even a quarter of the way there, much less finish it. Does that make sense? So you guys are the round pegs. You are, okay? And I say round pegs because I could say what? Square pegs, right? But what's interesting is this. I put down right here, oh, you're one of those, right? And you've heard that before, oh, you're one of those. And before 2020, when all the pandemic and stuff happened, the people would ask me, what do you do for a living? I'd say, I'm an emergency preparedness expert. And oh, you're one of those, right? We're the square ones, right? And what's interesting, I say, yeah, you want to learn more about it? You know what they do? They take their ears and they screw them off. And they pop them off their heads. And then they look at them and they go, oh, there's magnets. And they put them on their fridge for a few minutes. And then they just go, yep. Oh yeah, and they don't listen to a cent I say. And then all of a sudden, when I'm done, I go, did you get that? They go, oh yeah, I got it, totally got it. Thanks a lot, right? But the interesting thing is when 2020 happened, people weren't screwing their ears off anymore. Instead of saying, oh, you're one of those, you know what I got? Oh, you're one of those. And now all of a sudden, I don't have to be a square peg. I'm a round peg in a square hole, right? And that's what's awesome about where we are today. And that's awesome about you guys. So give yourselves a hands for being here. That's awesome that you guys are here. Okay, so if you're on this training right now, those of you online and those here, there's three things that you could be. Really simply, you can either just be getting started, you could be somewhat prepared, or you can be quite prepared. So just out of curiosity, how many of you are just getting started? Awesome, sweet. Okay, how many of you are in the middle? Okay, probably the majority of you guys. How many of you are like quite prepared? You feel like you can handle anything? Okay, well, 1 or 2, yeah. And that's about normal. What you guys just showed me is about normal. Now, in any case, if you're getting started, you're quite prepared, or you're right in the middle, all of you, including myself, have either gone through or will go through what's called the preparedness cycle or the preparedness vicious cycle. What that is the following. You hear some scary news. And you say, oh man, I got to get prepared because you're motivated by fear, not faith yet, okay? And when you see that scary news and you're like, oh man, how am I going to protect my wife? How am I going to protect my husband? How am I going to protect my kids? What am I going to do with my grandkids? Blah, 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 blah. You start worrying about all that stuff. So what do? You go to the store and you end up getting supplies, if you can get them, right? And the funny thing about it is when you go to get the supplies, a lot of times you go after what everybody's going after. So if they're going after Oreos, everybody grabs the Oreos. If they're going after chicken, they go after chicken. What happened in 2020? Toilet paper and? Yeah, toilet paper and bottled water, right? Okay, and then after that was chicken, right? But everybody, anything that hits the news, you're going to go after. You're going to say, I got to buy it all up as quick as I can. And that's what happens. But you do that until the news isn't so scary anymore. And then you stop. And you might have not bought anything at all, or maybe you just started to buy something, started getting into preparedness, but then you end because the news stops scaring you. And that's a horrible way to get prepared because you're going to be doing this all day long. You're going by fear all day long. So what happens is you wait, and then all of a sudden the news gets bad again. And when it gets bad again, you're all motivated again to get prepared again until the news gets better again. And you should see the store when something bad hits the news. It's packed. And within about a week and a half, even though things haven't gotten better, okay, it goes empty because people get used to the news. And so this is how it goes, and I'll show you really simply on the screen up here. The preparedness cycle happens like this. You hear some bad news, and then what do you go for? You go for canned food, right? Bottled water, toilet paper, staples, anything from the store. And then the next time it happens, you go, man, I got to get more prepared. I heard about grab-and-go kits, generators. I better protect my family because, if I don't have a knife or some mace, bear spray, a gun, something like that, somebody might come in And I don't want that to happen, especially with all the riots happening, right? Okay, back in 2020, for example. And so I better get some protection. Well, the next time the news scares you, you sit there and go, I better learn more because I'm not getting prepared enough. So what do? You go to YouTube and you go to your friends' blogs and you go all over the place, Facebook, anything you can to learn about emergency preparedness. And you watch a ton of videos. And as you're watching the videos, you watch one and it tells you a bit of advice. Then you watch another one that says the same thing, but in a total different way. And it says, don't do this, do that. Don't do this, do that. And you want to know what's interesting? I've mentored some of the biggest people on YouTube, Facebook, and everything else. Many times they're both wrong, or they're all wrong, because they haven't spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in mistakes like I have over 12 years professionally to learn what I've learned. They don't know the players in the market because they believe the advertising that's out there. And when you see a ton of advertising online, almost for sure, every time you see products being advertised online, it's because it's cheap products, huge margins, and they can make money off of you. Unless you're in the industry and you've bought those items and messed up with those items, then you don't know what's right. And that's what happens. So you get on there and you just learn bad advice. And so what happens next is you start learning that there's generators, there's first aid and medical sanitation. How are you going to transport things if things get really bad? You learn about gardening. It just goes on and on. And then you start getting really into it and you think, man, I just can't believe how much I'm learning. What else is there? So you get on there and you find out about 25-year shelf life foods. I don't have to rotate my foods. You get all excited about 25-year shelf life foods. But then you don't read that it says up to 25-year shelf life foods. And after about 3 to 7 years, a lot of those foods, about 90 to 95% of those foods go bad because you trust that the people are being honest with you. And so you just don't know what's right and what's wrong. And so you get in there and you find out about water tanks and you find out about survival supplies. And it's the blind leading the blind. It just keeps going. And then all of a sudden, more YouTube and Facebook and Google research and second guessing yourself and a lot of wasted time and money and just your financial supplies are just dwindling and you just feel completely frustrated. Has anybody even started going through this? You guys know what I'm talking about? Okay, a lot of heads going, yep. You can relate to exactly what I'm saying. This is what happens. You feel frustrated. You feel overwhelmed. You feel like giving up. Like you don't have the money and time for this. You're busy. You got a family, you know? And the emergency isn't strong enough, bad enough that you're really that motivated yet. The pain isn't strong enough to get over that other pain. And this is what happens, okay? You're drowning and you're in between two decisions. Should I get prepared? Is it worth it? If I don't get prepared, I feel vulnerable, stressed. I feel unsafe, worried, insecure. But if I do get prepared, I feel overwhelmed, stressed, unmotivated. Do you get the point? Okay, you make a ton of mistakes, waste a whole bunch of time and money. And that's what people are stuck between. And the truth is, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't. If you know, somebody told me a long time ago, try to find somebody who knows more than you so you can stand on their shoulders and see a lot further than you could if you didn't have that mentoring. And that's exactly what I've done in my life, try to find people who are so much better. And with these coaches here that we have on our team and with the experience I've had, you don't have to go through that. You can actually sidestep literally 15 years worth of experience, 15,000 hours, 20 plus thousand hours of experience. You get to just stand on my shoulders or my coach's shoulders and be able to learn a ton more without wasting time and money. And you know exactly what to do and exactly what to buy, exactly what skills to learn, exactly how to build a community and everything you need to do. So that's what you get to feel afterwards, peace, right? So in our industry, there's two groups. Who knows what those two groups are? Two main groups. Who wants to say one of them? Starts with a P, ends with reppers. Preparedness. Yeah, preppers. Good job. You got it. Yeah. P, reppers, right? Preppers. Okay, so one is called preppers. The other one's called? Starts with an S. Survivalists. You got it. Okay, so in our industry, we have preppers and survivalists. If you go to the internet like I did and tried to find the definition of a prepper or survivalist, you're not going to find it. I looked everywhere trying to figure out what's the difference between a prepper and survivalist. The funny thing is preppers and survivalists, which I consider myself both a prepper and a survivalist, okay, not an extremist, but I consider myself both. What I've found is that most people, even preppers and survivalists, don't know how to define it. So I created a definition. You want to hear what it is? Okay, preppers focus on supplies over skills, and survivalists focus on skills over supplies. Yeah, and that's what's interesting because look at this. A lot of people don't want to be known as preppers because they don't want to be known as hoarders. Okay, And in our program, you don't have to become a hoarder because we tell you what to buy. You don't have to keep making mistakes like I had to do when I filled up all my closets with stuff I had to throw away a few years later. Okay. The other thing is a lot of people don't want to be known as survivalists because they don't want to be known as militants or minimalists. And you hear it, right? The survivalists, they have like rooms of guns and bullets and everything. They're going to take everybody down. I'll tell you something, that seems pretty extreme to me. And I think it sounds pretty extreme to you guys as well. I think there has to be a balance. Yeah, should you have protection? Obviously. Okay. God didn't give us agency. Okay. God didn't give us agency and then give bad people the decision to go against that agency without us having the ability to protect our rights to that agency, whatever it means. Okay? He wants us to be able to, he wants good people to be able to be good and bad people not to be bad, right? Obviously. So that's what happens. And with the minimalists, a lot of people think, well, I don't need to own anything. So therefore, I'm just going to live in the middle of the desert and everything else with all my family and during an emergency, and that's unrealistic. So this is what happens, is I was actually at one of the top survival camps in the nation, and I was teaching these different techniques and teaching a lot of skills and knowledge and everything else. And I had one of the guys that was there, he came up to me and he said, we were actually walking in the parking lot, I remember this, and he said, you know, I really don't need all those supplies like the preppers have, you know, because I know what to do. I know how to survive anywhere. And I said, really, anywhere? And he goes, yep, anywhere. And I said, that's awesome because that's going to come in handy for you. But let me tell you, if you have the chance to go get supplies right now, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you get more food and everything else for every single one of your kids and your family and for your wife? You're going to spend about 6 hours per day trying to find food once the neighborhood dogs and cats are gone. Okay? So why don't you just get extra food and extra water and extra supplies and filters and everything, put it away. And if you never use it, awesome, high five. But if you need it, why make it more stressful for you? And he said, you're right. You know, there's no glory in becoming a macho man, right? There's no glory in showing off how many skills you have. Why don't you just make it a little bit easier on you? But on the flip side, he had something that a lot of people don't have. What he had is the following. Everybody in here can have a whole house full of supplies. But if your house burns down, there's riots, people get kicked out, whatever, and you have no skills, what's going to happen? That guy's going to survive a lot longer than you. And if you don't have those skills, find somebody that does or develop them, right? So you have to have both. And that's where it comes down to right here. Preppers, supply skills, survivalist skills, supplies, right? And what happens is you have to bring them together. And right in the middle, okay, right in the middle of that is a Venn diagram. The extremes aren't needed. But right there in the middle, if you have the right supplies and skills, you can actually get prepared for emergencies within 90 days or less. And that brings peace, faith, hope, everything that you're hoping for, right? Because if you're prepared, you're not going to feel the anxieties, right? You're not going to feel vulnerable like you normally do. And that is called a thrivalist. That's why we are called thrivalists. That's why at the end of this course, when you get through this 90 days, you will be called a thrivalist. And so because it's a positive name, you're thriving, not just surviving. Exactly. You guys got it. Awesome. So this is the 80-20 rule. Have you guys heard about that? Okay. And this is the 80-20 rule. What it is the following. I'm going to show you this picture of people moving. About a year ago, my wife and I moved into a new house. If any of you have ever moved, you'll probably relate to what I'm talking about. When we moved, we had a ton of stuff, and it was boxes everywhere. Within a few weeks, a couple months, we had almost everything in that house put away, okay, 80% of the way. And a year later, there's still all these papers I haven't organized. There's some boxes in the garage, about 20% that I'm probably not going to get to. And the funny thing is I should just throw it away because I really haven't needed it in the last year. But that 20% may take me years. The same thing happens in preparedness. 80% of preparedness can be done in 90 days or less, actually about 30 days if you're committing yourself to do it, if you know what to do. 90 days or less. Most people in that 90 days, okay, with this course right here, would literally have to take about 10 to 15 years to learn what you're going to learn in this course. But if you follow it, you're going to get about 80% prepared in about 90 days, which is about 500% better than most people get prepared in 10 to 15 years. Does that make sense? And then what you can do is you can spend the rest of your life learning all these skills, okay, like bow drill fires and hunting and whatever else you want to learn. You can spend your whole life like I am doing, learning all these little micro skills, all these little tiny skills. But what I'm telling you right now is 80%, let's go buy matches. Let's get an extra lighter. Okay? Let's get a ferro rod. Let's get something else. And then later on, I can teach you how to, start a fire with chemicals or start a fire with batteries and, whatever else, right? You can learn all these different things later on. But right now, let's just get the basics done. When you get the basics done, you can spend your whole life getting the rest of the stuff done. Does that sound fair? Okay, awesome. Thanks. So how do you do it? By implementing the 7 steps of emergency preparedness that are in order. And the goal is to prepare your family in less than 90 days and to become a thrivalist. So the interesting thing is when I was putting this course together, what happens is it took me over 3,000 hours. It's going to take me probably another 1,000 hours to finish this out. That's a lot of time. Not to count probably 15, 20,000 hours of experience alone. And when I was putting it together, people think, man, this must be a huge course. I'll never get it done. And the key is what I learned from the quote from the famous writer who wrote his friend and said, sorry for the long letter. If I had more time, it would have been shorter. Okay? And that's exactly the point, is taking all the time to figure out how can I take these really complex principles and make them so easy that when you go through these principles, you go, I already knew that, but you didn't. You just think you did because I put it so simply. Just like I did with the preppers and survivalists, right? I gave you that definition, you're like, oh yeah, I knew that, but I didn't, but you didn't, right? It just made sense, okay? But that takes hours and days and weeks and months to be able to simplify things. So that's what we're doing in this. And so with this, I'm going to help you replace your fears, and there's 4 things you need to replace fears. First of all, you need knowledge, and that's what we're teaching you here, okay? Second of all, you need the right supplies, okay, to get prepared. Next, you need the right skills. Good job, awesome. And then the last thing you need is you need the right community. And you guys are building community here already, by the way, but you're going to build community wherever you're at out there. You guys are going to build community, and that community is going to become priceless to you, okay? So I'm going to finish off with a little story here. And this story isn't exactly where I was at the time, but these 2 pictures remind me of it. Excuse the little belly. Oh my goodness, look at that. I'm looking at my pictures there and I got a little bit of a belly there. That's what happens. It's the dad bod. Have you seen that video? The dad bod. That's what I have. But anyways, I ended up early 2020, I was in Las Vegas at a trade show. And all of a sudden, the news hit about the big pandemic. Everybody was worried about the big pandemic. And at that time, people started to panic at that trade show. And it was weird watching people start like getting away from other people, leaving the building, staying away from tables, not getting close. And then there was the opposite. There was people saying, I don't care. And they were just like getting in everybody's faces. But I can still see that they were nervous. And I started getting nervous. And I started feeling anxieties. And I'm like, oh no, how do we handle this and everything else? Because it's so brand new. And it hadn't hit the news like it did in March and everything else. Like they said, stay home, get masks, all that stuff they said. But at the time, it was just like, what is it? Are we really, 1 out of 5 people going to die and everything else? And what happened is I ended up flying home, going home, and I was feeling anxiety, I got to get home, I got to protect my family, I got to get ready, all this stuff. And then I walked into my house and I vividly remember feeling the feelings of being home again and feeling the feelings of being prepared. And I was like, I'm prepared, why am I worried? And then when everybody started getting all this toilet paper, I had 7 years worth of toilet paper. It doesn't take up that much room, so I might as well, because women like toilet paper, right? And my wife appreciates it. So I got toilet paper, I've got a whole bunch of stuff, toothpaste, toothbrushes, you name it. So I had extra stuff because, hey, when I lived in Brazil through 30,000% inflation, I figured, I learned back then, might as well buy things cheap instead of expensive, so buy it up and hold on to it, right? And so that's what I did. So that right there reminds me of the peace I felt when I walked into my house. And that's what you guys can feel as well when you end up doing the 7 steps course, this Thrivalist 7 steps course. So I want to congratulate you guys again for being here. Okay, you guys are awesome. You didn't quit. All of you online, all of you watching this video, you guys are here. You showed up. And so don't quit. Let's keep going. Let's get back to the next, let's get to the next video, and I'll see you on that video. Okay, awesome, you guys. So that's number 1. I just gave a really cheesy smile at the end. I was like, did you see that? I was like, that was cheesy. So I'm going to start the next video. It's good. They're all going to be kind of short, except for I think the third one's a little bit longer. Do you guys want to stand up for 1 minute and sit back down? Are you guys good? Or do you want to just keep going? Really? Okay, go for it. Stand up. All that. Good deal. Are we okay so far? Is this okay? Good deal. We could do the hokey pokey. We could. And so we could turn all the way around. How you been? How you doing? Good to see you. Doing awesome. Good. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the next one. And let's see if I can figure this out. Let's go to number 2. All right, let's start this off. Okay, you guys ready? Okay, let's get going. Okay, we're here for video number 2 of the introduction, and we're going to give you a little bit of an overview of what the 7 steps are, so you know exactly what you're going to be getting into later on. So first of all, let me bring this up. The first one is risk assessment, and a lot of people think they know what they're preparing for, but they actually don't. The next one is sudden emergencies and evacuation. The next one is going to be water preparedness, food preparedness for number 4, meet your other needs, maintain your standards of living, and help others prepare in creating your community. So let's go through each one of these, and let's start with risk assessment. With risk assessment, what happens is a lot of people don't know that there's a group of main emergencies you can prepare for. And I put some of these up on the TV for you guys to see. But if you know what the main ones are, you can actually go deep into the ones that you're more worried about to really understand them. And when you do that, you're able to feel less fear is a good way to put it, because you're more knowledgeable. And what's interesting is this. I might go through this big list and I might say those are the ones that I need to get prepared for. And I can focus on those. And when I focus on those, I can go deep. So a lot of times when I'm teaching at big groups, I'll ask people, what are you getting prepared for? And they'll say EMP. They'll say earthquakes. I'll say, no, and just go on and on and on and tell me what they're preparing for. But then I stop and I say, well, what does that mean, an EMP? What does that mean, a cyber attack? What does that mean, an earthquake? What's the difference between a 7.0 and an 8.0? And a lot of times they don't have the answers. I said, have you talked to your school district close by to figure out what they're doing to get prepared for a hurricane or a tornado? Have you talked to the state? What type of supplies do they have? Can they really take care of everybody, or do you need to get your community involved? What happens is if you're able to go and figure out which emergencies you're preparing for, and just watch the videos on my course, you'll learn a ton just about those emergencies. But then you're able to go a little bit deeper on your own just to find out how to make it real for you. So the next one is going to be sudden emergencies and evacuation. This one right here is really interesting because out of all the 7 steps right there, it's unique. The reason it's unique is because the rest of the 7 steps have to do with staying at home. And that's the only one that teaches you how to handle sudden emergencies and how to get out. If you need to evacuate or relocate or whatever, that's the one that teaches you how to get out. Okay? That's the one where you're going to need survival skills, the rules of 3. The rest of them is when you stay at home, the rest of them is more realistic, because if you think about it, you rarely have to leave your home. Almost in every emergency, you're going to stay home. But in those small times where it becomes either too scary to stay in your house because it's going to fall down on you, or too scary to stay around your house because of riots or because of chemicals in the air or something like that, you might have to take off. And so that step actually teaches you all the steps you need to do. You're going to find out how to create the right emergency plans, grab and go kits, supplies and skills, how to survive outside of your house, and also how to practice your plants. The next one is going to be water preparedness, super important, right? They say you can survive, 3 days without water and 3 weeks without food. So water is more important than food. So with water, we're going to go through calculating your water needs, storing the water in the right containers, which containers you should get, which ones you shouldn't get. And by the way, bottled water, not the right way to go. There's better ways to go than that. Collecting and cleaning your water long term. So if you run out of water, how are you going to get more water? How are you going to collect it? How are you going to clean it? And then also we get to food preparedness, which is step number 4. And food preparedness is pretty complicated. There's a lot to do there, but if you follow the course, it gets really easy, where you learn about short-term food storage. You end up learning about long-term food storage, very different. You learn about long-term food replenishment. And then you also learn about food preparation and preservation. And then we get to the next part, which is prep step number 5, okay? Do you notice something interesting about all the rest of them compared to number 3 and 4? What's the big difference? 3 and 4 are pretty specific, right? Okay, water and food. And when you get to the meet your other needs, there's a whole bunch of stuff in meet your other needs. There's sanitation, there's communication, there's protection, there's so many things, about 10 different things you can do to prepare. But the reason why food and water are separated out is simply because of the story I'm about to tell you about California. Has anybody here or online ever been to California? Okay, so almost everybody, right? Pretty fun place, right? I grew up in Southern California. Okay, you have the beach, you have Disneyland, you have Knott's Berry Farm, Magic Mountain. You got so many different things, right? It's pretty awesome, huh? And so I grew up about 10 minutes from the beach and 10 minutes from Disneyland. It was a horrible childhood. I mean, what do you do, right? It's like we had to always go somewhere fun. And what's interesting is it's an awesome place, but at the same time, when you look at it, it's a concrete jungle. There's millions and millions and millions of people. If the trucks stop rolling in, literally there's about 2 days worth of food. Okay, millions and millions of people, right, in one little place. The difference between where we are here in Utah and maybe other places where you guys are in the world, okay, the difference is in California, I was a number. Here where I live, I'm a name. There were so many millions and millions of people that when they got home, they go right into their garage, open the garage, close the garage, and never talk to you. Okay? Has anybody ever had a flat tire here in Utah? You see how many people pull over to help? That doesn't happen in California. Okay, people honk or call 911 or whatever to help you. But here, people actually stop and help you. Okay? Well, if you can imagine the following, and I'm going to tell you the story. Imagine the following with Southern California, that there's mountains on one side, ocean on the other side. And let's just imagine, just being facetious, that there's 1 million people in a circle. Okay, 1 million people in one circle. And let's just pretend that all of them have 10 days worth of food and water. Nothing more, nothing less. Everybody has 10 days worth of food and water. And a huge earthquake happens. Shakes bigger than they've ever had and everything. And that morning, it just took down all the power grids. Everything was just down, gone. Okay, people had their little emergency radio still. They were trying to tune in, hear anything they could. They couldn't get very much, but they were just trying to figure out, okay, what's happening? That was really bad. Never seen anything like that in my lifetime. And so they go to their fridges and say, okay, those power lines are down. We got to get rid of this food. So they invite all their neighbors over after they make sure everyone's safe. And they say, hey, everybody, my house, I got the biggest backyard. We got the barbecues. Bring a few extra barbecues over. If you have briquettes, if you have anything, we got to use up our food. So let's cook up the meats and everything, and let's just eat the food. I mean, it's going to go bad anyways. So everybody comes over, and that evening around 7 p.m., you hear the following on a few people's emergency radios: beep, 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 beep. This is FEMA. All of you in Southern California, in this certain area, which has 1 million people, we'd love to get out there and help you, but the earthquake went all the way from Baja, California up to Canada. There's too many people, and you guys are blocked in, and all the airports are damaged. We can't get in there for 3 months. You're on your own. But we'll be there as soon as we can, which means what for the government? Okay? Okay? So at that point, you're with your neighbors and everything else. What are people feeling? Okay, they're still smiling, right? They're still smiling and say, oh yeah, things will work out. Yeah, things will work out. Hey, it's getting late. I got to get home. Guys, hey, take care, right? And then that night, before the morning comes, before the light even starts rising, you hear pop, 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 right? And you're like, what's going on? That sounds like guns. Okay? And then by that night, okay, before the night comes, by that evening, your neighbor goes, hey, Marcelo! And I come out the back door and I say, what's up? And he's playing the whole home improvement, right? Looking over, barely, right? And he says, don't answer the door for anyone. I'm like, why? What's going on? He goes, 2 police officers just came to my door and knocked on it. I looked through the little people. They were all bloody. I was worried about them. And I opened it up. It wasn't police officers. I think they killed the police officers and took their uniforms. And I'm glad I had my chain on. And I'm glad I had some type of protection because they were about to take me down. Don't open the door for anyone. Okay? And I say, awesome. Well, that night I hear smoke or smell smoke and see fire. And there's people coming in from other neighborhoods. Okay? And they're burning houses and taking people's supplies. They don't care. And people are getting really desperate. Bad people are doing bad things. And when it comes down to it, bad people win first. Sorry. If you have a good person and a bad person with a weapon, who's going to win first? The bad person, because they don't mind using it, right? So what happens is this. In that scenario, you're now on day 7. You have 3 days worth of food, and so does everybody else. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, in my house, I need to let my mom know in Ohio or whatever that I'm okay. So I end up looking outside and I go, that guy, that's right. The guy in the other street, he has the big towers. He must have ham radios. So I go around, sneak out, get to his house, and I go, open the door. Hey, I know you're in there. I can hear you. Quick, I can't be out here long. I'm a little bit scared. Can you please open the door? And he goes, who are you? And I say, I'm your neighbor. I live on the other street. I noticed you have ham radios and I just got to let my mom know I'm okay. Please, just let me borrow a ham radio. You can just put it through the window or something. What do you think she's going to say? Get out of here. We got 3 days to live. I'm not worried about your mom. Get out of here. How do I know you're telling the truth? I don't know who you are because you're in California, right? Okay, number, name, right? And so I sit there and think, okay, 2 streets down is a nurse. Hey, my daughter fell and she's got a sprained ankle. I don't have any of those compression bandages. Do you have one I can borrow? What's she gonna do? Or he, right? Get out of here. Probably not gonna answer the door, not gonna say anything, right? And that's the mentality of what's happening because things are really bad. Now let's flip the scenario. You ready for this? Let's imagine the following. Everybody has a year's worth of food and water out of that whole million people. Everybody. Okay? And the same thing happens. Everybody's in the backyard and they're cooking up the food, okay? And they got plenty of cereal, plenty of dry goods. People are good for a year, okay? Even without refrigerators. And the same thing happens. Beep, 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 beep. Sorry, we can't get in there for 3 months. You guys are on your own. What do you think is going to happen? Yeah, just say, hey guys, we're going to work this out, okay? And so we got plenty of food. We'll figure things out. And at that point, if I go 2 streets down, do you have a ham radio? I got to let my mom know I'm okay. What's he going to do? Yeah, come on in. Let's call your mom. Okay? Hey, do you have a bandage? Sure. Let's go to your house. Let's figure out what's wrong with your daughter. And when you're done with it, just wash it and give it back to me. Okay? And that all happens because of food and water. Does that make sense? So when I was making this course, I sat there and I looked at it and I go, how do I make it so that it actually makes sense? And I made it so food and water have their own sections and I spend a lot of energy there. And then I go to meet your other needs. And you'll notice right there on the slide, I put down that your other preparedness, what did I underline? The word needs, right? And because they are still needs, you can die without them. But when you have your food and water, you have your basic stuff met, you have a shelter over your head, you're not going to die of hypothermia or hyperthermia anytime soon. Okay, when you have those needs met, then you tend to help each other. And you can become a MacGyver and figure out the rest of the stuff if you need to. You have time, right? And so the next step is going to be preparedness step number 6, which means maintain your standard of living. When I lived in Brazil through 30,000% inflation, I learned a lot. I learned how to be able to thrive, not just survive during an emergency, not have to always hate an emergency, but have plenty of supplies where I don't really need to go to the store and everything else. I actually show you what those supplies are. I show you what those steps are. I give you a list of all the stuff I had to figure out for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I just say, go buy extra of these, put them away. They're going to be good. Okay. And that's what I do. And then that's the Brazil picture. Then we get to, actually, sorry about that. So with the maintaining your standard of living, there's a couple things we're going to be teaching. Establishing a rainy day fund. You're going to be creating a hedge for inflation, buying extra household supplies, and then creating a bartering supply, how to do that. So if you do need to barter for other people's skills or supplies, you can do that. And then lastly of all, this is super important, is helping others prepare and building your community. You are only as prepared as your neighbors. Sorry to say that. If your lights are on, your heat's running, your kids are fat, and everybody else's lights are off, they're cold and their kids are skinny, it's just 72 hours before a riot happens. Okay? For some reason, there is no loyalty when people are dying. So you're only as prepared as your neighbors. So it's important not only to prepare yourself and prepare them, but create like-minded people that aren't nuts, right? Okay, people round pegs, not square pegs, right? people like you who want to get prepared the right way. You need those as friends. You need those as part of your community. And those were the seven steps. Now, right there, create your list of people or groups. Reach out and get others involved and develop your preparedness community. That's what the things that we're going to be teaching in that seventh step. And so those are the 7 steps that we're going to be covering. And I'm going to ask you a question right here to be able to wrap things up. What is the biggest reason for catastrophes during a crisis? What would you guys say? What is it? Fear. Okay, what else? Biggest reason for a catastrophe during a crisis?
Not being prepared.
You hit it. Not being prepared. That's exactly it. Okay? If you're prepared, there's so many less casualties. But that's what it is. I mean, as an EMT, as a fireman, all that stuff, we spend all this time preparing for that one moment to help somebody. But if I didn't prepare, what would happen? I wouldn't be able to help people, right? It's preparation is the big thing. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to talk about what keeps people from getting prepared. And so let's go ahead and quit this video, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Awesome. I'm going to say that part again just to record it. So let's go ahead and go to the next video. So that's the end of this video, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Okay, awesome. Thanks. Was it cheesy? It wasn't too cheesy? Really? I'm getting better? Sweet. Okay, let's go ahead and do this. Are you guys still good?
Yes.
Awesome.
You're doing good.
Good deal. Let's grab the next one. And thank you guys. I didn't have much time to rehearse this, so I hope it's coming out okay. And let's go to the next one, normalcy bias. Oops, that's not it. That's it. Okay, can you guys give me a little clap? I need a little energy. So awesome. Thanks. Okay, we are back, and now we're going to be talking a little bit about the normalcy bias. And I want to ask you guys, do you guys know, have you heard of the normalcy bias or the normality bias? It's what keeps people from getting prepared, right? And if I were to ask you all the reasons, that was really dumb. Hold on a second. Let's just start over, because I actually didn't do it that right. So let's just do it. Give me another clap, please. Thanks. Good. Awesome. Welcome back, you guys. And we're going to talk about the normalcy bias at this point. But before we get started, I'm going to ask this question. What keeps people from getting prepared for emergencies? What are all the different reasons why you or other people don't get prepared for emergencies? Give me some reasons.
Don't see the need.
Don't see the need. Why get prepared? Nothing's going wrong, right? Never going to happen, right? What else? You're busy. Space, money, what else? No time. That's a big one, right? Okay, what else? Yeah, the government or church is going to take care of us anyway, so why even worry about it, right? Okay, awesome. Any other ones? What is it? Laziness. Okay, or grandma or mom's going to take care of us, right? So yeah, we don't really have to worry about it. The truth is, it all comes back down to the normalcy bias, and I'm going to explain what that is. The normalcy bias causes people to underestimate the possible effects of a disaster. It's a sense of denial. Okay, that anything bad can happen, and so people minimize the possibilities of catastrophes. Okay, they don't believe that something in the future is going to happen because simply it hasn't happened to them in the past. That's what it is. But it's the biggest reason for casualties in emergencies because it keeps you from getting prepared. There was a survey done by Time Magazine. And in that survey, they surveyed a bunch of people, and they found out that 91% of people, Americans, live in moderate to high-risk areas for natural disasters. And when they surveyed people, well, why aren't you getting prepared? I mean, it looks like it's a bad place. The biggest 2 excuses people gave were, number 1, it won't happen to me. And number 2, if it happens, it's not going to be that bad. I'll figure it out when it happens. Okay? Do we all kind of think that way? I do sometimes. You know, I have in the past at least. With preparedness, I've had to get out of that. But that's what happens. You look at all the thousands of everyday examples of breaking the normalcy bias. The normalcy bias is a part of our brain that protects us from going crazy. It's a great thing, because if we thought everything bad was going to happen every single day, would we even leave the house? No, because a car's going to run us over, or we're going to break a bone, or we're going to, lose our phone, or something's going to happen, right? And so our brain actually protects us from negative thinking, and we see the positive every single day. And so to be able to get prepared for emergencies the right way, we actually have to break through that positivity a little bit. We actually have to become a little bit more negative. And it's sad to say that, but you have to find out what's the possibilities of something happening, and what's the worst thing that could happen during that emergency. So if I can prepare for the worst and hope for the best, somewhere in the middle I'm going to live. Does that make sense? And so with that in mind, let's think about some examples of things that have happened to you guys that broke your normalcy bias. You can see some examples here. Has anybody ever broken a bone? Once you break a bone, yep. Once you break a bone, are you a little more careful to not break it again? Yeah. You kind of watch what you do, right? How many of you ever had a death of a child or lost a job, for example, right? It becomes real for you. When it happens once, it can happen again. Same thing with divorce or cheating, cancer. When I was at BYU of all places, such a good place, right? You can leave everything unlocked. I left my bike outside because who's going to steal that? And it got stolen. Guess what I did after that? I locked it up, right? And so it happened once, it can happen again. Same thing with my car got broken into in Los Angeles. They took my school backpack. Come on, hopefully they're a little bit more educated. And what happened is after that, I put dark tints on my windows. I still do. And I hide my stuff so people can't see it, just because of the car break-in. Food poisoning, house fire, swindled by a friend, frozen pipes, house flood. I've done that before. Anybody else get a flood in their basement or anything like that? Yeah. You learn very quickly to not do what you did, and you protect yourself a little bit more. These are examples of having a normalcy bias that's broken, just in a very simple way. So let's go into a little more extreme. Anybody hear about the Titanic? It was a pretty big boat back in the day. It was the top of the line technology. Back in 1912, it was going across the Atlantic, which is a lot shorter than the Pacific. Not a big trip, right? And people were thinking, this is the most secure boat in the world. What could happen? Like iceberg, come on, And so when it ended up hitting the iceberg, less than 1/3 of the over 2,000 passengers lived. And a lot of those wouldn't leave the boat to get into the lifeboats, which shoved off about half full. Okay, because they thought this is a lot more secure than lifeboats, even though the captain and everybody were saying, get off the boat, get off the boat, get off the boat. In their minds, they couldn't fathom the normalcy bias. How could this be? They couldn't switch over to something else because their minds were so on it. Next thing is Hurricane Katrina 2005. Over 1,200 people died, even though the authorities kept saying, get out of there, get out of there, get out of there. But what were people thinking? Probably a lot like the way I probably would have thought, We've been through so many storms. This is dumb. I'm not leaving my house. Look at last year, we had 10 storms. I mean, what's going to happen this time, right? But in their minds, they couldn't fathom that the water would be coming rushing in and flooding all those houses. And so they didn't get out in time. Okay, that's the normalcy bias. Yellow badges of 1939, 1945. You guys have heard of these? Okay, this was in Germany. They ended up putting signs on anybody who was a Jewish business owner, had to put signs that they were a Jewish business owner. And then they had to wear stars after a while that they were Jews. And a lot of the people sat there, if you, with that history right here, okay, if you had to put stars on you, what would you do? Get out of there, right? Okay, this is happening again, right? And so, but what happened back then is people said, well, it can't get that bad. I mean, how bad can it get? I don't want to leave my family and my home and my business and my job and everything I've worked for and all my friends and my kids' friends and everything else. I'm not going to take off, because they couldn't fathom in their mind, because of the normalcy bias, that something could be that bad, until over 6 million Jews died and 5 million plus other people and everything else. How many was it? 40,000 camps or whatever, I don't remember. Some huge amount of camps that were more than just, there were work camps and concentration camps and a whole bunch, who knows. My grandmother actually was thrown in one. She was actually in World War II. and she was thrown in a camp, and the English came and saved her right before they were about to kill her because she was saving people in Greece. You know, she's Greek. I'm half Greek, this side, okay? So anyways, the interesting thing about it is, imagine today, okay, in the United States, if you had to put on your driver's license that you're a Christian, or you're a Muslim, or you're an Asian, okay, or you're from Korea, or Vietnamese, or Russian, or Chinese, okay? If you, I mean, this was a big division in our state, at least, maybe in the country. You had to put on your driver's license or wear something showing that you got the vaccination or you didn't get the vaccination. And one or the other is going to get targeted, right? Imagine if things like that happened. Can't get that bad, right? Until it does, right? And you just never know. So you always got to keep your eyes open, your ears peeled, and everything else. Pearl Harbor, who would ever attack the United States on our soil until it did? Same thing with the Great Depression, right? Here's the greatest country in the world. And people think today, how could it happen, right? How can the dollar ever go down? But it did for about 10 years. And a lot of people died. A lot of people starved. It was just a really horrendous time, a lot of depression. In fact, the people who got through the depression, if you've ever talked to them, they hoard things. Have you noticed? Because they broke through the normalcy bias. If it can happen once, what happens? It can happen again. You guys got it? Okay? Same thing with the San Francisco earthquake of 1906. And then even after that earthquake, it happened again in 1989. And people didn't learn, right? Completely. Because how could it happen again? Or how can it happen even the first time? Because it happened so many years later, all the new people, right? Anybody remember the 9/11? Remember where you were? I do. I was in my apartment and I couldn't believe it. Does everybody remember where you were? Just out of curiosity, I see a whole bunch of, just out of curiosity, I'm going to pick one of you. Where were you?
I was in Athens.
You were in Athens, Greece.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's homeland for me. Tikanis. Harikapoli.
Yeah, I mean it was in the afternoon there.
Yeah.
And
Afternoon there.
yeah, and you don't understand the language, and you don't understand what's going on TV because that was before the second plane.
Before the second plane, but everybody was talking in Greek and it was all Greek to you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it was interesting. It was shocking, right? I mean, we got attacked on our mainland, not just Pearl Harbor this time. And then you look at the Spanish flu, 1918. Back in the day, 1.8 billion people, okay? And about 500 million of those got the Spanish flu, and about 1/10 of those died. That's a lot of people back in the day. Now, come a little bit more to our day. You guys remember the 2020 COVID pandemic? Okay. Did that make it a little bit more real to you? Did that make it so that it wasn't weird to get prepared now, right? And then you look at the riots that happened in 2020 as well. And then this is a little slide to remind myself about speaking at a church. Because I was speaking there and they asked me to come and speak, and they said, speak on whatever you want to. And it was really fun, actually. But before I went and spoke, I did a survey and I asked them a bunch of questions and I took all their answers down and I did a simple average. And I asked a bunch of questions like, how many believe that in the next 30 years, what's the probability, not for sure, but probability in your mind that there will be a large earthquake in Utah sometime? We just had one a couple years ago, and we're starting to have more and more, right? Probability that this might happen, probability of this, probability of that. And I just went down. I even asked some Christ questions. What's the probability of, World War III happening, Armageddon happening, all these different things, right? And the fun thing, I even read scriptures to them on the last days, okay? And read scriptures to them. And I stopped and I said, let me just ask you a question. Some of you here love me and some of you hate me because I just read scriptures to you. And the funny thing is, it has nothing to do with me. Okay, because I didn't write them. Okay, I'm just reading them. But what's happening is some of you are emotionally prepared, normalcy bias. Some of you are emotionally prepared to hear death and destruction and everything else that might come in the future. And some of you don't want to listen emotionally. So I become the bad guy or the guy or the good guy, depending on how you feel. That's it, period. Because I'm not offending you in any way. I'm just reading somebody else's words. And that's what happened. But when I ended up asking these guys these questions, I noticed that this is a pretty wealthy ward or wealthy church, right? And And with those people in there, I asked them, I said, look, I'm looking over your surveys, and most of you aren't prepared at all here in Utah, where you know about preparedness. Why aren't you getting prepared? And they gave me all the excuses and everything else. And I said, can I make this just real for you? How many of you, all the you wealthy entrepreneurs and everything else, how many of you believe that the dollar is going to be more powerful or stronger next year? And all of them said, not at all. I said, how many of you believe that food's going to be cheaper next year? I said, not a chance. And I said, how many of you believe that we can go into a recession because we're in the longest stretch without a depression in our life, or much less, much more a recession, right? And so how many of you believe we could go into a really bad recession? And all of them said, all of us believe that. I said, how many of you believe that we could go into depression? And they said, of course. I said, then let me do you a favor. Even if you don't believe anything bad is going to happen in the next 20, 30 years, can I just tell you to go get a bunch of emergency food, emergency water, emergency supplies, buy extra stuff, because even if nothing happens, next year all that stuff's going to be more expensive. 10 years from now, you're going to wish you bought about 50 times what I'm telling you to buy. Okay? And 10, 20, 30 years from now, that 30-year shelf life food's going to still be good. You can still eat it in your meals, and you can still enjoy it or sell it and get all your money back, okay? All of it back. And then you're going to look at me and say, wow, what a great investment. Thanks, Marcel, for teaching us and helping us get to that point to get that. But if something bad happens, okay, if you go that whole time and nothing happens, you'll thank me. But if something bad happens, you're going to thank me even that much more. So just get prepared. That means you need to suspend your disbelief long enough just to get prepared. And then go believe whatever you want, okay? Doesn't matter at that point, right? And so that's the idea. So let's go into just a couple things that might happen so you guys can get a little bit more scared. Just kidding. I don't want you guys to get scared. I actually want you guys to believe in the reality of this. It surprises me, in all reality, it surprises me with all the plane flights all over the world and the crazy people out there that somebody hasn't taken a dead body that can hold a virus for 7 to 10 days, put it on a plane somehow, bring it here and release a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Like I don't know if you know, the Marburg virus is the worst virus next to Ebola, okay? Where Ebola, you can get about half of the people die, 1 out of 2 people. With Marburg, it's about 9 out of 10 die. And it surprises me some crazy person hasn't let that out yet, okay? You look back in the news just recently, back in October, they closed down a lab in Los Angeles, I believe, that were putting infections into mice to release them. And that's in the mainstay news, okay? And so you think someday it's probably going to get out there, I mean, biblically, right? And then you ask the question, when will the economy collapse? Because we're really worried about it. If you look at this, do you remember Venezuela? Venezuela is interesting because if you study the history of Venezuela, they were the 4th richest country in the world, okay? Where's the United States right now? We're about 10th. Okay, we're the largest economy, but we're about the 4th richest. Venezuela had the biggest oil reserves of anyone, and they were the 4th richest in the whole world. Now, back in the day, about 10 years ago, not even that long ago, 10, 15 years ago, they ended up, the politicians ended up taking the oil money and just spending it on the people, spending it on the people, spending it on the people. It became a very socialistic nation until the oil prices went down. And then the government couldn't cover their debts. And then the whole country spiraled out of control. Until this day, we're talking about, look at some of the stats. Over 63,000% inflation in 2018 alone. Close to 20,000% inflation in 2019. If you take all the percentages of inflation from 2015 till now, who knows, it's probably 50 million% inflation. It's crazy, okay? But that's what happened during that time. Now you think about this, how much different are we than Venezuela here in the United States? They fell apart with about $100 billion in debt, with about 30 million people. We're about 10 times bigger, but what's our debt? Right now, at the time of this video, 34 trillion, okay? And if you look at the derivative market, we're over half a quadrillion. That's more money than all the money in the world if you were to combine it. Nobody knows what the derivative market is, but if that crashes, we're dead, we're gone. Okay, and then if you look at it right here, U.S. unfunded liabilities over $200 trillion that we don't know how to pay. We got a lot of stuff that we have to pay. And then it makes you wonder, how long can that last? How long can you keep spending yourself into staying out of recession, right? You put more money in, more money in, more in, and then the money loses value. And so that's what's happening right now. So people don't understand that what happened in Venezuela, what happened in Brazil, what happened in Argentina, what happened in Zimbabwe, what happened in all these countries can happen in the United States, but you need to turn off the normalcy bias. Because if you don't believe it's going to happen, you're not going to prepare for it. Because I guarantee you that if you absolutely 100% knew that you needed to get prepared for crazy emergencies 10 days from now, that the economy was going to shut down, everything was going to shut down, even if you didn't have money, even if you had all your excuses you guys gave me earlier, okay? If you gave me all those excuses, you would figure out a way. Excuses are useless. You would call family and friends who have money. You would get with your neighbors, say, hey, I'll give you my skills if you put in your money. Hey, I don't have time, but we'll find time because 10 days from now, things are going to get really bad. If you knew something was going to happen in 10 days, you'd find a way to do it. But because you're relaxed now and you don't believe things are going to happen for a while till they do, okay, you're not really that motivated. And so, but well, you guys are. You're here, and you guys are here as well online. So anyways, if the economy were to fall apart, I can imagine because of the BRICS nations, the dollar going off, the petrodollar right now, the whole world losing confidence in the dollar, the credit rating of the United States going down twice already. Okay, if things were to fall apart because people don't have faith in the dollar anymore, I can imagine after that we're probably going to have a lot of riots and everything else, just like every other country that has gone through this. Now, war on U.S. soil, war on U.S. soil, is that even a possibility? Okay, yeah, you got to get ready for the idea of that, right? And then what about the coronal mass ejections? Have you heard of those from the sun? So back in 2012, and you look at the date right there, July 23rd, 2012, there was a coronal mass ejection 3 times faster than the other ones, the normal ones that came from the sun. Big solar flare, and it missed the Earth literally about 9 days, a little over a week. And if that had hit our Earth, what would have happened? All the electricity would have gone out. We would have had damaged transformers everywhere. Things would have just fallen apart. We would have been kicked back into the 1800s. Okay, just to give you a feel for what happened during that time, when the electricity hit the long pieces of metal called railroads, it actually caught the railroad wooden ties on fire. Okay, it actually caused the telegraph. People that were doing telegraphs at the time got shocked and on the other side, and it blew up some of the telegraph stations. The what's it called? The aurora, right? The aurora was seen as far as the equator. Okay, and the funny thing is, here in Utah, there was actually gold miners in Utah, and it lit up the whole sky, and they thought it was morning, so they got up and started cooking breakfast. And so I thought that was pretty funny. But there was all these stories about people, people being able to read newspapers in the middle of the night in New York and on the East Coast and everything just because of this event. Now, who's to say it's not going to happen again, and when it's going to happen? We just don't know. And if people were to ask me, what is the worst thing that can happen as far as emergencies go? I say the worst thing that can happen is the electricity going down indefinitely. Okay? And I'll give you a little bit more on that. Has anybody seen Obama's put out their new movie, right? Our president put out a new movie. Come on. And if I were a president, I put out a movie, I'd do something positive about the United States. But they put out a movie about the U.S. falling apart because of a cyber attack. What was that?
It's because of what they want.
Yeah, probably, right? Yeah. So the interesting thing is they showed what would happen, how society would fall apart if electricity and communications fell apart. Let me see this right here. The U.S. Warning of a Russian threat to the power grid. This right here, if you Google cyber attacks, you'll notice that every main television news station is talking about cyber attacks, and that Russia and everybody are inside our computers and everything else. They can shut it down anytime they want to. Let me ask you. I'm gonna play a video here in just a minute, but before I do, let me just see something. Before I play this, let me ask you, what would happen if the electricity did go down for a year or more? What in your minds would happen if the electricity went down for a year or more? Okay, why would they die? I mean, you're right. There was a congressional hearing, and they did a big study to find out how many people would die in 1 year, and they said 9 out of 10. Okay, up to 90 people would die. 90% of the population of the United States would die within 1 year. But the question is why? Why would that happen? What are your thoughts? Say again. Lack of skills, yeah, the big one, right? They don't know how to survive without plugging something in, right? What else? Okay, within 2 to 5 days, even with the extra power, the reserve power and everything else, water stops pumping. Okay, that means your toilet stops flushing. That means that insects and rats and sicknesses and everything else, cholera and everything else starts spreading, right? But what also happens? You're right about go ahead. No medications. No medications, no CPAPs, no anything else, right? Okay, no food production. No supply chain. You're right. No comforts. No brushing your teeth. No toothpaste being delivered to you anymore, right? And so what happens is when you have none of that stuff happening, we're kicked back in the 1800s. We're not ready for that. All the businesses would close because we're all on the internet, by the way. All of us. My business relies on the internet. Almost everyone does, right? And so if we were kicked back in that, most people wouldn't be able to make it because they don't have the food, the water, and everything else they need to be able to get through that. And if nothing else happens except for starvation, that would be awesome. But the truth is, people get crazy. And within 90 days, that's why I tell people, people ask me, how much food should I have? And I say, well, you should have at least 3 months worth of supplies. Okay, food, at least 3 months, but shoot for a year. Why a year? Because 4 seasons. Guess what? 4 seasons, you're going to learn how to plant things, cultivate them, learn how to preserve, and you're going to find your community. You're going to find the people you trust and you don't trust if it got that bad. If it got that bad. And the idea is it may never get that bad. The truth is just pretend it does. Because if you get prepared for it and it never happens, awesome. But if it does, great. Okay, you're ready for that as well. So let me do this. I'm going to play a little video for you guys. This is just from the news stations, by the way, and I could have pulled off about 10 to 15 of these, but you'll notice all of them are from mainstay news. So let's do this. You ready?
Tonight, concerned that Russian government hackers have carried out probing cyber attacks on vital U.S. infrastructure, including the power grid, potentially giving the Kremlin the ability to turn off the lights.
Okay, let me go ahead and start.
Earlier this year, and tonight concerned that Russian government hackers have carried out probing cyber attacks on vital U.S. infrastructure, including the power grid, potentially giving the Kremlin the ability to turn off the lights. Earlier this year, the Department of Homeland Security and FBI detailed a 2-year multi-stage effort by Moscow targeting hundreds of companies that they believe is still ongoing. The hackers first gained access to small energy-related companies, planting malware that then allowed them to move into larger networks. Once inside the energy suppliers, the Russians collected information on the facility's control systems, attempting to acquire the ability to turn those systems off.
They're identifying targets, they're positioning malware so they could pull the trigger when they wanted to. But they're also sending the United States a message. We are in position to cause harm if we wanted to do it. And so the U.S., should be a little more careful.
Russians targeted other crucial sectors as well, including nuclear power, water, aviation, and manufacturing. Experts see the intrusions as a possible precursor to an unprecedented Russian cyber attack that could, in the event of all-out war, devastate the U.S. homeland. The director of the NSA and commander of U.S. Cyber Command says that Russia presents a clear and present danger.
And one of the things I found very interesting about this year's threat assessment was no longer is the federal government describing these things as a hypothetical. I mean, in the past, the government has said that the threat of U.S. retaliation would keep our foes in check. This year, they've dropped that. Now they're saying the Russians and the Chinese are in our networks and they can shut things down if they wish to. That's really a dramatic turnabout. And I think it shows that this is really a matter of utmost national security.
Awesome. I want to know from you guys, what are your thoughts when you watch that video? Just a couple of you, tell me your thoughts. I'll grab a little microphone, but what are some of your thoughts that went through your mind? Who'd like to say something?
I think it's not if, it's when.
Yeah, it's not an if, it's a when, right?
Yeah.
Something's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And the funny thing about it is when it comes to power out, which again is the worst thing that could happen in my mind, and I've been doing this a long time. That's a long, I mean, that's worse than a major pandemic. It's worse than financial crash. It's worse than anything else I can imagine is electricity going out. When you think about it, it can happen because of solar. It can happen because of EMP attacks from nuclear bombs that explode way above our head, and we never even feel it, see it, or anything like that, and takes out our electricity. It can happen because of cyber attacks, and it can happen simply because somebody takes a gun, like they did in North Carolina, to take down a power unit, like they did in California, like they tried to do in Oregon and Washington, like they tried to do in Ohio. They can literally take a gun and just shoot a power unit or a little bomb, a little power unit, could be just a regular bomb, and they can take down the whole power supply for that whole area, because each of those substations are made with LPTs, large power transformers. Those things are custom made for that area. That means it takes over a year to make that large power transformer, which means if you take it down, they have to wait for a year for it to be built. Okay, that's what happened. But guess how many substations they would have to take down in the United States to take down the whole grid? There's what, 20,000, 22,000, something like that substations. Guess how many? 9. 9 main ones. It's not hard. Okay, and that could take down the electricity for the whole nation. That's how fragile things can be. But if you don't know that, then you're not worried. You're not prepared, right? And you guys know that now. So any other thoughts that go through your mind after watching that video? Anybody else would like to say something? Any other thoughts? Okay, awesome. Well, let's do this. On the next video, we're going to actually be talking about, and I like this, if you are prepared, you shall not fear. So be prepared, not scared, right? And that's one of the things we talk about here in this store. On the next video, we're going to be talking about one man's experience in Hurricane Sandy, and we're going to wrap it up, the whole intro section, with this man's experience. This is more of a natural disaster than it is any type of man-made disaster, but the points that he makes actually get you into his shoes, and you can say, wow, if I were there, I would feel that or I would experience that at all. So let's get to the next video, and then I'll just go ahead and share that with you guys. Okay, so let me go to the next one. So is this interesting so far? Are you guys learning some stuff? It's helping out? Okay. Just before we get to this, what's one or two things you guys have learned that has stood out? This is off the record. This is just for fun. This is just to help solidify the stuff that you guys learned. What's one or two things that stood out to you guys that you've learned so far? Anybody? Go ahead.
The normalcy bias, I'd never thought about that. And now it just opens your eyes.
The normalcy bias, exactly, normality bias. Anything else that came to your guys' mind, something that you've learned or thought that thought was interesting that you haven't thought about in a while? So, do you want to say something?
I think there will be
Here.
just a few who will. There will be just a few who will prepare, I guess.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? The thing about it is a lot of people have the ability to prepare, but very few will do it because, again, it goes back to, like, my sister is awesome. I love my sister tremendously. When she had the Texas thing happen, where everything froze and all the utilities were going off, she called me ahead of time. Should I fill up my tub? And I said, yeah, why not? With water. And then all the utilities went off, no water and everything else. And I called her up and said, you filled up your tub, right? She goes, no. And I said, why? Because some people were saying that I was crazy for doing that. And I said, but it's just, you can drain it. It's not a big deal. But the thing is, there is a real peer pressure to not be weird. Okay? And you just got to let that go. You just got to say, who cares? If anything, I just made an awesome investment for the future. And when you guys are spending a ton of money on food and water and everything, and toothpaste and everything else, I'm good for a long time, right? Any other thoughts? Any other ideas that popped out in anybody's minds?
Not ready.
Okay, what was that?
I'm not ready.
Yeah, but the thing is, you can be. And again, remember, you got the 80-20 rule. If you get 80% done, you're more prepared than most people in the whole world. And you can do that. You can do that literally in 90 days or less. So you just don't let that fear take you down. Okay. Again, knowledge, right? Skills, supplies, and get your right community, right? And then you're okay. One more person. Anybody else want to say anything? Any thoughts of something you learned, something that was interesting to you? Doesn't have to be something you learned new.
Doing great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the next one. Let's see. Okay, we are back, and we're going to go through one man's experience in Hurricane Sandy. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. Hurricane Sandy, the interesting thing about it is people, remember how big that was? It was huge, right? A lot of people suffered, a lot of people died, everything else. The interesting thing about it is it was a Category 2 or a Category 3 at one point, okay? It wasn't a huge Category 5 hurricane. So it makes you wonder, why was it so bad if it wasn't that bad or that high up? And it was the largest. So it makes you wonder, why was it that bad if it wasn't a Category 5? Part of the reason is because it was the largest Atlantic hurricane ever to be recorded in history. And just to give you a comparison, it was over 1,000 miles wide compared to Katrina. You remember how bad that was, which was only about 400 miles wide. What that meant is that there was 80 miles per hour wind, not even 120 or anything like that, but that wind just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming, kept coming, kept coming, and it was relentless. Swells were just coming in and just kept coming in, and it didn't stop. And it was so big, it just took forever to get by. And because of that, there ended up being over $70 billion in damage. Huge. And then there was blackouts to over 8 million homes as far west as Michigan. Isn't that crazy? So this is this man's experience. A few weeks after Hurricane Sandy hit, one of the survivors, attributed to Frank Osman, wrote an email that quickly circulated around the globe, and his viewpoints are pointless. His viewpoints are priceless. The interesting thing is, I've read this so many times, gone through this so many times, and I would love to meet Frank. So Frank, if you're out there, call me sometime. I'd love to talk to you. You actually have helped a ton of people in classes we've taught and everything else because of your viewpoints. So the thing is, I actually went a little bit further with these 46 points. I'm not just going to read them to you. I'm actually going to break them into step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay? So that you can see some of the points, how they relate to the course. So let's go ahead and start with number 1. The excitement and coolness wears off around day 3. So you need to know that as part of your risk assessment. You are never really prepared to go weeks without power, heat, water, etc. Never. Yes, it can happen to you, and you really do not want to be the unprepared parents. The kids turn on you pretty quickly. Number 2, this has to do with sudden emergency preparedness, and this has and number 23 on his list. Some people shut down in an emergency. Some people shut down in an emergency, and there's nothing you can do about that. Number 46 on his list. There was a strange piece to knowing all I had to do each day was keep my family safe, warm, and fed, but my peace was somebody else's panic. Then we get to step number 3, which is water preparedness. And he says, if you don't have water stored up, if you don't have water stored up, you're in trouble. A couple cases of bottled water is not food storage. Stored water can taste nasty, and most folks don't have even emergency, sorry about that. So most folks don't have any emergency storage. They run to Walmart and get water and batteries, and then they fill up their tubs with water. That is it. A lucky few will get a case of ramen and a box of Pop-Tarts. That will be your neighbor's supply, especially if you live outside of Utah. And it makes me wonder if he knows people in Utah. Okay, food preparedness. He says you eat a lot more food when you're cold because you burn a lot more calories, obviously. You need more food than you think if your kids are out of school for 2 weeks. That's interesting. Most people don't think about that, right? Yeah, completely. Especially if you have teenagers. Teenagers, I don't know, they can eat like a pizza at a time, and they just keep going and going and going. Think of the things that are your comfort, your escape, a cup of hot chocolate, a glass of milk, a ding-dong before bed, etc. Stock up on those things too, because you'll need the comfort after day 3. A woman who can cook a fine meal by candlelight over the barbecue or open fire is worth her weight in gold. And women whose weight in gold would not add up to much, especially die off first. Usually die off first. Sorry, skinny women. He's got a sense of humor. All the food storage in the world means nothing if your kids won't eat it. And by the way, that's a big point. Have you noticed that in our store, we sit there and if people come in, we don't just sell them a bucket of food. We tell them actually try the food because of a thing called food fatigue. And people don't understand if you don't love the food ahead of time, you're probably not going to eat it during an emergency. And kids are the worst. They'll lose a ton of weight and they'll end up dying because they don't want to eat. And after a few days, you stop getting hungry. So I tell people, make sure you buy the food you love and love the food you buy, right? Mothers, everything you have ever done for your kids is forgotten if your kids are hungry. And then let's get to step number 5 where we talk about meeting your other needs. Just because your generator runs like a top does not mean it's producing electricity. The electrical grid is way more fragile than I thought. I was surprised how many things run on electricity. You cannot believe the utility companies. They are run by politicians, or so it seems. When it gets dark at 4:30 p.m., the nights are really long without power. Some solar charging gadgets will keep you in touch. Most work pretty well, it seems. Most things don't take up much power to operate. I actually took some time to be able to put some of those things up that don't take a lot of power to operate. And you'll notice computers, phones, radios, TV, lights, clocks, small freezer, electric shaver. You can see right here some ideas of things that don't take up a lot of power. But then he goes on and says some things take a ton of power to operate. And you'll notice some of the things here. Okay, range with oven, fridge, toaster, chest freezer, hot plate, microwave, blender, coffee maker, hair dryer. You get the idea. Space heater, clothes dryer, washing machine. You're using a lot more electricity in your home than you imagine. Keep going with meet your other needs. I was surprised how quickly normal social behavior goes out the window. I'm not talking about someone cutting in line at the grocery store. 3 people were killed at the gas station within 50 miles of my home. I did not say 3 fights broke out. I said 3 people were killed. You should store as much fuel as water. Propane, gas, kerosene, firewood, fire starter, kindling, paper, etc. It takes a lot of firewood to keep a fire going. All day long and into the evening for heat. I'm going to say that again. It takes a lot of Have you noticed I've been talking all day? Oh my goodness. Okay, here goes. Ready? It takes a lot of firewood to keep a fire going all day and into the evening for heat. You can never have enough matches. Kids do not like washing their face in cold water. All of the expensive clothes in the closet mean nothing if they don't keep you warm. Same goes for shoes. Love you, honey. Fathers, all the money you have ever made means nothing if you can't keep your kids warm. You quickly become the guy in the neighborhood who knows how to wire a generator to the electric panel. You quickly become the guy in the neighborhood who knows how to wire a generator to the electrical panel, directly wire the furnace to a small generator, or get the well pump up and running, or inverter power, or you are the guy whose master's degree in accounting suddenly means nothing. Anything that you depend on someone else for is not available anymore. Quote, a man with a chainsaw that knows how to use it is a thing of beauty. Okay. That was a good one. I like that one. Getting out of the house is very important, even if it's cold. Make your home the semi-warm place to come home to, not the cold prison that you are stuck in. Someone in your family must play or learn how to play the guitar or other musical instruments. or other musical instruments. And then we get to step 6, which is maintain your standard of living. Even the smallest little thing that you get from the store should be stocked up. Spark plugs for the generator, barbecue lighter, etc. If you're not working, chances are nobody else is either. Your town, no matter how small, is extremely dependent on outside sources of... Your town, no matter how small, is extremely dependent on outside sources for everything. If supply trucks stop rolling in due to road damage, gas shortages, or anything else, you could be without for a long time. Cash is king. All the money in your savings means nothing. Your 1972 Honda Civic gets to the grocery store just as well as your 2012 Escalade, but the Honda allows for more money left over for heat, food, water, a generator, firewood, a backup water pump. You get the idea. It's interesting because being in this business for so long, I get a lot of people that give me a ton of excuses. One of the biggest one is, obviously I don't have time, I'm busy, all that stuff. But the other one is I don't have the money. But what's interesting is those same people I watch spend, $1,000, $2,000 on a TV for Christmas for everyone, or $5,000 to remodel a kitchen, or they spend $10,000 on a cruise for all their family. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't think it's money, I think it's priorities. And that's not the case for everyone, by the way. There's a lot of people who do struggle with finances, but a lot of people just make excuses. My thought is just get prepared and then go on your vacations after that, right? Just get it done. And in an emergency, men stock up on food and women stock up on toilet paper. Things that disappeared never to be seen again for a very long time. Fuel of all kinds, matches, lighters of any kind, toilet paper, paper plates, plastic forks and knives. And by the way, that's when I learned this from him. Guess what I did? I went to Costco and bought a ton of paper plates, plastic forks and knives. And you always have the spoons left over, but and the knives, actually, a lot of knives you don't really need, but forks you need a ton of. So we bought extra forks, just forks, lots of forks. And we got a ton of that stuff because I thought that's brilliant. Paper, not plastic. You can burn it in the fire afterwards, get rid of it. You don't have to clean anything. It helps not spread diseases. Batteries, he says, I didn't really see a need for them. Flashlights, maybe? Milk, charcoal, spark plugs, 2-stroke motor oil, maybe for chainsaws, maybe for chainsaws. Anything that could be used to wire a generator to a house, like extension cords, and medicines like Tylenol, Advil, cold medicines, etc. Okay, and then the last one, step 7, help others prepare. And he talked about you might be prepared to take care of your children and their needs, but what about when the neighborhood children start to show up at your door? Although neighbors can be a great resource, they can also be a huge drain on your emergency storage. You need to know how you're going to handle it. It's really easy to be Bob, the guy who shares on day 3. Not so easy on day 11. Just reality. Give a man to fish. Okay. Yeah. So, and then the last one he says, give a man a fish, he eats for a... And then the last one he says, give a man a fish he eats for that day. Teach a man to fish and he will never go hungry again. Now I get it. And that's a really good principle. That's what you guys are doing here in this class, by the way. You guys are actually learning how to fish. You're doing it for yourselves. You're not expecting anybody else to do it for you. And that's awesome because you're becoming self-sufficient. I can't think of any other way. No politician's going to do that for you, by the way. No one's going to step into office and all of a sudden save your life. It has to start at the individual level. And then it has to go to the family level. Then it has to go to the neighborhood or church level. Then it goes to the state. Then it goes to the country. But it has to start with us, period. Okay. I was talking to some people and they say, well, we figured out that most people don't have enough food. So our church is going to do something super special. Things got really, really bad. All of us are going to bring all our food to the church and we're all going to survive together. I go, but what if it's a long, long emergency? Most of you guys only have 1 week to 2 weeks of food. Yeah, but my neighbor has a year's worth of food storage. I said, but that's an impossibility. Okay, one person has 1 year's worth of food. All of you have 2 weeks. One person, 999 people. Okay, how is that going to last very long? It's a mathematical impossibility. You're not going to get more than you're not going to get more than about 2 weeks worth of preparedness. Okay, does that make sense? And so the thing is, it has to start with us. It has to. Now he ends his little email by saying there were also many things that were not learned from Hurricane Sandy, but reinforced. Those things were the importance of my family and their love and support, especially my lovely wife, that my Heavenly Father is really in charge, period. And finally, that I am very thankful for the upbringing and finally, that I am very thankful for the upbringing and experiences that have taught me and brought me to where I am, wherever that is, haha, right? And he brings up a little point that Heavenly Father is really in charge. And what's interesting is a lot of people look at preparedness like it's all being driven by fear. And I've got a lot of preparedness, believe me. I've got more supplies than you can imagine, okay, for any family. And what's fascinating is that I'm not doing it out of fear. I'm doing it out of faith. My hope is I can help a lot of people. But I'm also willing, if he said, get rid of all of it in the middle of an emergency with your 2 baby kids, I would. Because I trust him more than me. Does that make sense? And he might see a way bigger picture than me. He does see a way bigger picture than me. So that's something we got to remember as we get prepared. So just a few more thoughts to end this it's an introduction, is while you're going through the whole course, there's going to be a main video you're going to watch. You can go 2 times speed on any of these videos, by the way. I'm unlocking it for people to go 2 times speed. Hopefully it works, and if it doesn't, let me know and we'll work on that. But you can go quickly on it, you can stop it, you can pause it, you can rewind it, you can do anything you want to be able to get through this stuff and learn what you can. This is what I want you to do. Go through the main video, use the downloads, the worksheets, use the workbook if you have that. Write down your notes because you're going to use them through the course. You're going to use your notes to build on the next section. On the next sections, by the end, you're going to have your whole plan. Even if you don't have the money to buy everything in 90 days, you're going to have your plan for what you need to buy over the next year or 2 or whatever that you need. But you can get the plans done within 90 days or less, guaranteed. Okay? And then next, you're going to want to go through any supporting videos that are going to help you. So go through whatever you need to learn with the supporting videos and finish the assignments. If I give you an assignment, I say pause the video now and figure this out. Pause the video and figure it out. Just do a little bit of work, even if you don't take too much time, but just do it. Okay, do the assignments. There's a reason why I'm giving them to you, because they're going to add on to what I'm going to do later. Next part is make the course yours. This is your course. Okay, this isn't for my family. This is for your family. So if you need to tweak it a little bit, or you need to skip a part of it, or come back to another part, revisit a part, make more notes, whatever you need to do to make it yours, this is for your family. This is for your welfare, right? And those that you care about the most. And finally, make sure you progress throughout the course and don't get stuck in it. I have so many people that stop and I just can't move on until I'm perfect. And that perfectionism hurts you. So this quote right here is something I read it's in my journal, by the way. I read it every single year at the beginning of the year, and then I think about it throughout the year. And it says this is by David Burns. Aim for success, not perfection. Remember that fear always lurks behind perfectionism. Confronting your fears and allowing yourself the right to be human and make mistakes can paradoxically make you a far happier and more productive person. Got that? Now, to end this, I want to remind you that it's better be, can I try that again? To end this, I want to remind you that it's better to be prepared a year early than even one day too late. And finally, the goal is to get your family prepared completely within 90 days or less, or at least create a plan to get your family prepared that you need to follow as quickly as you can after 90 days. So that's my goal. I'm going to ask you not to quit. Just keep going. Make this super important to you. Like I said, make it yours. Okay? And in the next video, in the next section, we're actually going to start step number 1, which has to do with risk assessment. And we're going to continue this whole idea of the normality bias or normalcy bias. We're going to start breaking it down in the next section to the point where it's going to prepare you for steps number 2 through 7 for the rest of the course. Anyways, great having you guys here. Great having everybody online. And congratulations for actually doing this course, actually getting into it and getting it done. Cheesy smile, right? Okay, awesome. So, you guys, thank you. That was awesome. Any while I'm here, I usually when we're doing different events, I usually stop to answer any questions. Is there any preparedness questions that people came here with that I can maybe spend just a couple minutes, maybe 5 minutes, just to answer any questions? Water, food, whatever. I don't care. Anything that you guys have, go ahead. Nope. So it takes care of almost everything except for botulism. So botulism, you're going to have to pressure cook it. It has to get above about 250 degrees, and you can't do that at 212. But it takes care of almost everything. So, yeah, they can do that. Yeah, Giardia is sometimes a little bit difficult, but you can usually you can add a couple things to do that as well. But boiling is pretty good.
I saw a comment that says you need to store as much fuel as water.
Yeah.
To me,
It's impossible. It's impossible except for the short term. So when I'm redoing this course right now, what I'm doing is I'm making it so that there's 4 different types of terms. One, you got a short-term emergency, and then you have what's called a lifestyle change, which is number 4. Lifestyle change means it's a year or more. And the way we're going in our nation, you got to remember, we are the #1 nation in the world as far as the biggest economy. The bigger it is, the bigger you are, the harder you fall, right? And we have a lot of enemies. Okay, so if we were to get taken down, we might not get taken down small. It might be a year or more. And the thing is, if you have firewood to burn and coal and propane, it's going to be gone by that point. And I probably wouldn't do that anyways, because anytime you're burning something, yeah, hey, right there, that's where I'm going, right? It just alerts people until you have your community, right? Then you can do that as much as you want. But yeah, it's a hard thing to do. Tomorrow I'm going to be testing out, and this is the geek part of me. I've been actually going out in negative, like really cold weather. So I don't know what it would be in Celsius, but negative or 16 degrees Fahrenheit, whatever it is in Celsius. But I've been going out in basically my underwear, no shoes, no beanie, okay, because usually you need a beanie to keep you warm, and just underwear. I mean, nothing, barely at all. And I've been sleeping out in really, really cold weather, different technologies to figure out how would I sleep in a cold house? Because the reality is, if the utilities aren't going during the winter, you're going to have a cold house. Okay, so the point is to sleep warm, dress warm, and you have to sleep or you get sick and die. And so I've been actually using open cell foam sleeping bags, not regular sleeping bags, because my feet get cold. And I got in them, been testing out a few different ways of doing it. And I got in one, what was it, 2 weeks ago, maybe? A week ago, 2 weeks ago. And I got in, and I actually got too hot. And I had to pop my head out in the freezing and going, oh, so much better. And it was amazing. So tomorrow I'm actually having an open cell foam expert come in to be with my team to teach us about open cell foam clothing, that if I needed to leave with a 72-hour kid, which will never happen pretty much, where I have to go in the wilderness instead of, go to a church or a civic center or whatever, what would happen is this. I would take that open cell foam, I would put it next to my 72-hour kid. I grab my kid because I don't want to put all that foam stuff inside there. I would grab both of them. I would walk out of the garage or into my car and drive away, and I would put it on as my clothing, but it would also become my sleeping bag. So when I'm out there, I actually literally, because I've been testing it, sleep without a sleeping bag if I wanted to, in the middle of a freezing cold, okay, negative 10 degrees Celsius and 0 degrees Fahrenheit, whatever, and I could be totally warm with just clothes alone. Okay, so that's my little experiment, because how do you carry, that? And that becomes what I wear all the time. So anyways, hopefully that answered. Let's go maybe one more question. Anything you guys are curious about?
I'm curious about not dragging our feet if they do change the currency.
Yeah. So not dragging your feet if the currency does start losing value quite a bit, right? Yeah. And by the way, in the course, I'm going to show you something really cool. I just went to a coin dealer that got duped, and he bought I wish I had it here. In fact, I bought it. I think I showed it to you, Celeste, right? The 2 coins. Did I show you those? Over the phone. Okay, so anyways, I have a silver coin, an American Eagle, and I have another silver coin, American Eagle, and they are identical, and one's fake. Okay, and this coin dealer got duped, and he goes, "I never get duped, but I got duped." And he said, "This is the most duplicated coin out there, plus the I think it was the half dollars or the silver half dollars or something that are from 1964, and they look exact with silver." And so I'm going to show you in the course later on how to be able to tell if it's fake and how not to get duped, where to buy, where not to buy, because there's a lot of people out there who will take advantage of you, especially in today's economy getting worse and worse. What's interesting is in Venezuela, when all that stuff happened, you know, the whole fall of the economy, the crime rate and the deaths went crazy. Okay, and it still is. I mean, if you notice that, what about 9 million Venezuelans have left the country, from what I read last, 9 million. In fact, I was in Florida a couple weeks ago, and I was paying Uber drivers to go all these different places, tons of Uber drivers, and I'd get in there, and they go, "Oh, where are you going?" And I go, "Oh, you speak Spanish? Sí, sí. Oh, qué bueno." And we start talking a little bit. I go, "Where are you from?" "Venezuela." I'm like, "Oh, cool, awesome. That's awesome. Why'd you come here?" Yeah, of course I knew, right? And so the next one I'd get in, "Where are you from?" "Venezuela." "Where are you from?" "Venezuela." "Where are you from?" "Venezuela." "Where are you from?" "America." "What?" I'm serious. I go, "You're the first American I got." He goes, "I get that a lot." But it was really interesting how many people left the country because of what happened there. Anyways, that was the last comment. I want to thank you guys for being here. And did you want one more question or no?
Oh, I was going to ask for EMP,
Mm-hmm.
which seems to be almost the most catastrophic thing that could happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't get a lot of airtime. What are some of the basic things that differentiate that from earthquakes and all the other things that we're preparing for?
Okay, so what differentiates a EMP from earthquake? Okay, earthquake doesn't take down the whole nation. EMP does. And what happens is this. An EMP has 3 waves, E1, E2, and E3. That takes a second, okay, for those waves to hit. They'll hit anything with wires in them, just like telephone lines, and all the way down to cars or whatever else. Little cell phones might not be damaged because the wires are so tiny, but you just never know which ones are going to be damaged, which ones aren't. But if all your electronic devices are gone, okay, if all of your food production, your food transportation, your gas pumping, your water pumping, your sewage, your lights, your electricity, your heat, your coolness, all that stuff is gone, okay? Remember we talked about 9 out of 10 people would die within 1 year. It's hard for us to fathom because we're just like, can't be that bad until it is, right? Until it does get that bad. That's the idea right there. Knocking down the electric grid is the most devious thing anybody can do to our country. Does that make sense? Because it preserves the whole country for somebody else to come in, take it over. They don't have to blow anything up. They just let us kill ourselves over a year, right? That's the idea. Yeah, that's the idea behind it. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. Thanks for helping out. And thank you everybody online. Thanks everybody online.